Calling the meeting to order.
Did you find if the trees were identified? The specific-
I'm going to recommend that we change the order of the agenda. We have at least two people, I think, that want to make some public comments, so we'll put that up front, if that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
You bet.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order, and starting to my left, someone introduce yourselves?
I'm Trent Warnes. Or did you mean?
That's okay.
Sorry.
You go first.
I'm Trent Warnes. I live here in Oregon City and just joined the Natural Resource Committee this year. So.
Ginger Redlinger, community member.
And
I'm Nancy Broshot, and I joined it as of right now.
so,
my first meeting.
welcome to you.
Newest member.
Welcome to you.
And Jackson Volka will be presenting. He's sitting over here because he needs to run his presentation from this laptop here.
Very good.
Excellent. Dorothy Dalsred, resident Oregon City.
Bill Clark, and I'm a member, non-city resident member, but I do business here and around town. And I'm gonna have to excuse myself. I have a heart monitor going and it's been goofing up today. And I see it's non-functioning again, so,
You mean the monitor, not the heart.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was kinda came in late because I had been on the phone with tech support.
And you know you can catch the video later. Of
Right,
our presentation, so.
right.
Anything specific you want to say before you leave?
No, these are all great projects. I did want to mention that there's a Marine Board open house tomorrow that I would urge everybody to come to and give your thoughts about. I am concerned on that issue regarding any more confusion for the fish at the confluence there.
Uh-huh.
And there are some hydrological considerations. And
Where and when?
it's tomorrow here from 6 to 8.
Okay.
Marine Board and Parks and Recreation. Hope to come myself. We'll see. I'm kind of slave to this monitor right now. And I didn't realize it had quit working again, so the heart's still working, don't worry.
Okay.
Well, rest up and
Good to see
See you
you.
later.
hope to
Bye.
see you soon,
Thank
Bill.
you. I'm sorry I have to leave like this.
Jerry Hearn has a conflicting meeting. He's hoping to get here later on, and I'm Doug Neely, Chair of the Natural Resource Committee. We're going to go ahead and bring the public comments up first because we have some presentations that are probably going to take a bit of time. Who do we have for public comments?
Couple of comments.
Oh, yes, right here. We'll just start with Roger, if you want to come forward with the Oregon City Parks and Recreation Committee and Senior Center. I'm looking at the one that's on. I'm looking at the one that's on top.
And Oregon City Parks Foundation.
And Oregon City Parks Foundation. That's right.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Roger Fowler-Tice, resident in Oregon City, and I'm here representing the Oregon City Parks Foundation. And as some of you might know, we have a grant with HDR Engineering that we'll be turning in tomorrow, and the grant is for doing invasive species pulling in Waterboard Park, and we have some. This is the first part of the grant, and we have with HDR Engineering, we needed a sponsor, and that worked at HDR, and we were very lucky to get a person named Lisa Graytek, and she's actually worked on the Riverwalk in another position, of a job that she just left to go to HDR. So she's very well aware of Oregon City. She's grown up in the area, and she spent her youth in Waterboard Park. So it's just, it was just really worked out well. So now, the first, as I said, the first part of this grant would be to get as much of the ivy and other invasives that we can get over the course of the year. And the grant starts at 15,000 up to 25,000. The second part of, after we get enough of the ivy and other invasives pulled, would be to look at the road and find a way to make it so that it can accommodate bicycles. We realize that it's a moving road right now geologically, but we're looking at some way of putting something in so that bicycles can use that road, and as well as foot traffic, and then we would be looking at putting maybe some other trails through there after we've got it cleared out and see what is, where some more trails would fit. There's, as you all know, there's quite a bit of interesting landscape in there, and historically the park is geologically very interesting, and it's been written up, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And we were hoping to ask for a letter of support from the NRC, and I think I'm supposed to ask if we can put this on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I asked you if you wanted letters of support. If there's no problem, I can put together a letter of support.
Oh, man.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
we've read that, what you sent to us.
right,
Yeah.
and the natural. I'm sure that the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council would be happy to do one too.
Thank you very much.
When would the letters of support be due in? I know you're sending in the grant tomorrow. Is that
We're
right?
sending in the grant tomorrow, and we received a few already, and the grant is electronic, so we plug everything in and send it over. Well, Lisa's can read it. She can plug in any time to go over it. So anytime we get the grants, I'm not quite sure if it was the deadline, say at 5 tomorrow, or I know that she wants to get it out tomorrow morning to get it in. So I know
Tonight
this
is
is I
your
know this is a
deadline.
rush, but we just found this grant 2 weeks ago. So and it's not an easy grant to fill out. We spent all day trying to finish it up. So
If a letter of support comes in a little later on, is that a problem?
I don't quite know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have we got it. We were able to get a letter. We have 2 in hand right now, and my sister also works at HDR in Denver, and that's how we found out about this grant. And she also works with nonprofit groups, just like Lisa does, as an employee. And she said that she's actually never had any letters of recommendation for her groups. So, but we just wanted to show that that we had the support of the community in this grant.
This is kind of a large grant to be asking for as a new foundation too.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City, for the record. And I'm also a board member of the Parks Foundation. Is there an issue with us being able to get a letter by tomorrow?
I think I can put one together.
Thanks very much.
Why didn't I?
I think I can submit one for the other body without their approval, but this one, yeah. Send it directly to you then?
Excuse me?
Just send it directly to you and you can send it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Or Brian.
Okay.
Copy both of them in,
Yeah.
would be a smart thing.
Brian is
was-
heading up the grant.
Okay, very good.
So, and that's about all I have today.
Well, if you can align yourself with HDR Engineering, that company's philanthropic outreach is incredible.
Actually, I did have one. The other part is that once you get with this company, they do a lot of follow-ups, and it could be very beneficial for our park system, and and heritage.
Architectural.
And I didn't mention that Lisa is also a architectural historian. So she's very knowledgeable, and she's working on, right now one of her projects she's working on is the old Columbia Highway, putting a bike and foot traffic path through there. So she's just, I mean, it's amazing that we were able to get her to, this falls, this, you know, just fits right in with what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Very good.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you, Pete, can you send me a letterhead for the city?
Yes,
Okay.
can do. Do that. We've got a little letterhead made up.
Good. Thank you. And then I believe Paul Edgar.
Thanks, Deputy Lee, members of the committee. I'm Paul Edgar from Oregon City, also a member of the board of Parks Foundation. So let me be a third in thanking you. The reason for my coming here is in this letter, and it's very simple. We have a wetlands in Kanema that was somehow forgotten, not put on, mapped. And it's been now delineated, adjudicated by Department of State Lands. And so it's official, and all we would like to do is just have an abbreviated legislative action that gets it included into the Oregon City wetlands mapping. And this is critical for the main aspect that we want is that without it, they don't have to comply with Oregon City's setback rules that are critical, or they wouldn't be part of our code if they weren't important. And so we just like to see it get included in the best way we can. Now, we'd love to invite you all to come down and take a look. We'll give you a show and tell, and we'll let you see where the water comes from the historic Kanema Waterworks, how the streams flow from it. But at the same time, we have water perking up all over. I have a big wetlands right across the street from my house that comes directly out of Aquifer Springs, directly across the street. There's creeks and channels trying to control the water everywhere. But one of the aspects of that is also because Dogami, through LIDAR, identified Kanema as having some of the highest susceptibilities to landslides in our area, both shallow and deep. My house is a rock hump that came from South End Road. And every time you drive up South End Road or down it, you see where it's breaking. Well, I'm the beneficiary down below. Part of it. Out in front of my house looks actually towards the Willamette River. You see the back of it. There's a big rock out there, maybe 2-3 tons. And it's all of the dirt around it has been exposed because the slope slid down and is now down on 4th Avenue below me. I'm on 5th Avenue. So down below on 4th Avenue, there's a similar hump, tailings. And what we need to do is just expose you guys. So if we get a chance and we could ever give you a show and tell, Coffee Creek runs between my house and my garage.
And then it goes under somebody else's house. Just
It goes under a house down the road, directly under the house. So, but we are a National Register Historic District, which has a cylinder around it. So you have to envision this, that everything within the cylinder, all land, water, all the resources, trees, everything, is included in the national denomination. And it should be protected and it needs to have good thinking people knowing it, responding to it. My house is built in 1880, and it's been in the family for 130 years, my wife's family. But we care, and we want you to be able to be knowledgeable and care about what we're fighting for. And so it's an environment. I plant trees, as many as I can every year, and I try to do everything I can to protect the water, the resources, and everything that's there. And so this is a very, all of this is an important issue to me, and I think that there's some things that can be done that are educational, where we can do a better job of show and tell and explaining to the next generation what all of this means, where we can pull it all together. And this is part of the positive thing about looking ahead. So I'm looking ahead, and I'm hoping that you guys will join us as we try to do what's smart, reasonable. And I think if you come down there, you'll find some of the beauty of what is Kenema. Thanks.
Thank you. I spoke to Laura, and I knew you'd be coming tonight, and it's been some time since we've actually done our local delineation. And Laura, I don't know if you want to speak to that or not.
Yes, the last wetland inventory was in 1999.
Yeah. So, of course, this is a big area, but we've had other issues have come up in the city where either the delineation wasn't quite right and so forth. So, what's the process that we can take his concerns forward?
So anyone can apply for an amendment to amend the Natural Resource Overlay District boundary. It goes before the Planning Commission and the City Commission. So property owner could apply, Mr. Edgar could apply, anyone could apply for it. The city doesn't have to initiate it.
The appropriateness of our own committee initiating it?
Well, there's the budget part of it too, right?
Yes, no, I understand that. There would be a budget part whether whether he did it or we did it.
Right. So if you initiated it, how would you do that budget?
Well, no. We can't. We'd initiate it by making the recommendation, just like anybody else would.
No. So Mr. Edgar can do the study and submit an application, and then the planning division will accept that application and process it through the committees. There's a fee associated with that, and then there's whatever studies need to be done associated with that as well.
What process would be required to seek funds for the study, for the city to actually do the study?
So we don't have a budget for it.
I understand.
So you could apply for a grant. From my understanding, the last review was obtained from grant funding. So we did receive the grant funding in '99 to do that study. So it would be a really good work plan for NRC to seek funding for that, and the planning, we could work on something as far as staff support of that, but if there was funding identified, we can have a conversation about that.
Do you have any idea for a specific site what the cost would be? Probably not offhand.
Well, I mean, on this particular site too, there's a bit of a timing thing, right? We're talking about one wetland. So since 1999, we have found 2 wetlands that weren't identified in all of the city, and one is in the Cove area, and they took care of it properly and treated it like a vegetated corridor. So the difference between being in the overlay district or not is essentially the vegetated corridor, so the lush native vegetation adjacent to the water feature or the wetland. The wetland itself is protected, as Mr. Edgar identified. So it's just it's that vegetated corridor, which is very important, that would be losing if it wasn't subject to that. So the property owner could still voluntarily do that. I don't know the legal ramifications of if somebody else could apply for this requirement for just his property. They would have to go through the pre-application conference, and then we start paying legal bills to try and answer those questions. So we don't know that if there are other ones or not. We haven't come out and found any other wetlands or any other features. We actually have the opposite problem, more or less, since the inventory was done. There are features that have been either dried up or no longer exist, not that have appeared. But I'm sure that you're going to see both if we do another inventory. It is something that we should look at as a city, or have it on some timeline to come back to at some point.
If our neighborhood association, which is not an individual then, makes a request, we normally get to get these things passed through without fee.
No, the neighborhood association, I like the creative thinking. So there is a cost to this, right? Someone's got to do a study. In this case, there was a study done by the applicant, right, to kind of delineate it, and it was, and DSL went on site.
Adjudicated.
Right, so they verified the study was correct. And so you have that piece of work done. I don't know if you need this property owner's signature to just put just this property on the inventory, right? Oftentimes you'll need property owner's signature to do things for their property. There's legislative where you look at the whole city, but in this case you're just looking at one property. So to initiate the process, you take that body of evidence, which you already have started, right? And you submit an application to the city to amend the Natural Resource Overlay District, which again goes before Planning Commission and City Commission, and staff reviews it. It's not a request for us to do it. You turn in an application and prove your evidence to show this ought to be in the overlay district, and here's why. And then you respond to the applicable sections of the code. There is no fee waiver for that, or subsidy from the general fund, which is what we have in our code. We allow neighborhood associations to appeal land use decisions for free if they agree on it as a neighborhood association. We don't have any opportunity in our code for the general fund to subsidize submittal of applications. But so one person, a whole group of people, anyone is welcome to submit that application. Again, there's questions, right? When you go through the process, we'll start to answer those questions like property owner signature.
Okay. You're taking it through the neighborhood association, I take it?
Yes, yeah. This is just, I thank you for the clarification, because I think that was all new to all of us. But it is important that we protect the environment, and and the quality of life, and that we are trying to sustain. And I would hope that there's some way we could do this in an abbreviated way that does not make it too costly. And if we can also get into some creative thinking on this thing. We know that it's there. We know the state has already adjudicated it.
Right.
The landowner identified it originally. Now it's basically official with the state. We just need to get it onto our maps. And I would think that there should be some streamlined way that we could do this that it is very affordable, and particularly if the neighborhood association comes back and makes the request to you, and we could do it, but we work together as a team.
Yeah.
You know, where it's not where we try to see how we can make it happen, because it's common sense.
Very good.
Thanks.
And
Thank
staff,
you.
we can send an email.
I think, Martin, did you have something you wanted to speak to?
So wetlands are my background. So it is a delineated and accepted wetland line, and under DSL rules, and they have a buffer that they have to comply with, and the developer has complied with that buffer strip, regardless of whether it's in our natural resource overlay district or not. So you made a comment that you were concerned that they would be making encroachments within that buffer area, and they haven't. The fact that it's actually delineated and they're working outside of that is because they have that delineation and were instructed to work outside of the buffer.
We were told by DSL that they could encroach up to the line up to the delineated line. And they said that that is different than what Oregon City has with our
Vegetative corridor.
setback rules. They said, we don't have setback.
So the city does not, but the
city-
state, they still have to comply with the state requirements for impacts to a wetland for a delineated wetland.
But they can go straight up to the delineated line, where in Oregon City, there are setbacks. Initially, when we had a major rainfall, after the developer had come in and started trying to clear it all off, the creek at where it flows out all turned brown. The water, and this was just from a major rainfall over the disturbed soil. And so we could see immediately that there was impacts that were taking place in that vegetated area that had been altered. And so this is why we know that it affects waters that flow into the Willamette, i.e. that the waters, because they do that, becomes waters of the state. And that's our understanding, and by state code. And so we're trying to get it all knowledge. Our knowledge base is not up to everyone, but I think if we collaborate and we work together positively, then we have an opportunity, whatever it is. You know, that's all we want to do is just make sure that that we do it right. We use some common sense.
Okay. Well, I would sure suggest bring your neighborhood association before us and so forth and see what can be done.
Yeah, we will. We're actually having a meeting tomorrow night, and at that meeting, I will make sure that this is brought up at the meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we can send whatever information or email about processes and that kind of thing too. Whatever you need.
Yeah, we just whatever it is, let's figure it out. Thank you.
Okay, with the presentations now, the canopy descriptors and the role of trees in the urban modeling by Jackson. Is it Vocal? Vocal.
Yeah, Jackson Vocal. And Jackson is a geospatial researcher with Portland State University, specializing in urban heat island effects and the role of canopy of forests in the metro area. So without further ado, I'll turn the lights down and let Jackson take it away. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you for having me here. As Pete said, I'm a researcher at Portland State University. I work in a place called the Sustaining Urban Places Research Lab for Dr. Vivek Shandis. Dr. Shandis is on the Urban Forestry Commission for the City of Portland. Just emphasize his passion for trees and for preserving the environment, especially in the metro area where we see a lot of demolitions, a lot of new homes going up. So our main role, we use LiDAR data to study the urban canopy and build it into different environmental models. So I'll start with this image here. This is you can see Oswego Lake. Oregon City's just down here. This is an image I usually show to folks from out of town just to give them an idea of how much canopy we actually have in this region. So some important questions that we have in the lab, and you'll see in this presentation. How do we measure all of these trees? We have so many of them. You can't go out and count every single one and measure every single one. We want to know which trees are important. Of course, they're all important for different reasons, but what really is important, different definitions of importance, how important, to who is it important, and also how do we identify trees most in need of preservation. So one way we could do this is climb every single tree. That's not a very cost-effective, time-efficient way to do it. So what we do is use LiDAR data. Someone spoke about Dogami earlier and their LiDAR to detect vulnerable areas for landslides. We use the exact same data as Dogami uses. The Oregon LiDAR Consortium actually all paid into the most recent flight in 2014. Oregon City was part of that. LiDAR is an airborne laser scanning system, so the plane flies around and it actually shoots out anywhere between 200 and 400,000 pulses of light every second. And what that does is bounces back just like a cop with a speed gun, seeing how fast you're going. It's the same concept, but instead of just giving us an exact distance or an exact speed, it'll actually put a point in 3D space. So looking at 3 coordinates for each point, we actually know exactly where on Earth it is. The most recent LiDAR flight collected over 63 billion points in the Portland metro area, and it was our job to take all of those points and turn them into trees. Well, the ones that were trees, at least. Here's the metro area, just to give you an idea of the scale, how big of an area that we're actually capturing these trees for. We're going to zoom right in there to the center. These are standard USGS measurements.
Out of curiosity, what's the size of those grids, you know?
It's 7.5 minutes by 7.5 minutes. It takes the Earth 7.5 minutes to turn over a point directly above it. But you can see here, right here is OHSU, and here's Oswego Lake. So you can get a pretty good idea. I mean, it goes all the way from Tualatin to Milwaukee. They're quite large areas. So if we zoom in, you see Oswego Lake here. This is the I-5-217 interchange. We're going to zoom into that also. And if you look in the upper right corner, we're going to zoom in there. And you might notice here that the image looks a little blurry. That's because it's not actually an aerial photograph. This is LiDAR data. If we tilt it 45 degrees, we can actually see all the points that make up the data. So we have that resolution data for the entire metropolitan area and then beyond also. It even goes all the way up into Bull Run watershed. So what can we do with that? That's a lot of points. It takes a lot of processing, many months of processing, but we can get different types of GIS data out of this. From the left to the right, we have an elevation model. That's where we actually can see through all the trees, and we remove buildings, we detect those and fill in the holes and create a representation of what the ground is like underneath all of that. To the right of it, that's just every pixel represents a point, the elevation of that pixel, and this is 1 meter resolution. Does anyone know what area we're looking at here in each of these images? That's Tryon Creek and Lake Oswego's first edition right here. With some map trickery, we can actually turn these two into volumes, heights above ground, which is of course very useful for canopy analytics. And to the right, with even more math and a lot of computer code, we can turn that into biomass metrics. So we can get an idea of not only what the tree cover is in an area, but actually how much tree is there. It's highly correlated with leaf area index. So it's important to use LiDAR for this because we classify the points. So we actually we call it the point cloud, all 63 billion of those points. We go in and can tell, each one gets a classification. You're a building, you're the ground, you're a tree. So what we're looking at here is just off of Tryon State Park. Each pixel represents the kilowatt hours per meter square of solar radiation that each one of those pixels will receive. So we put in terrain data on this and model the position of the sun over the entire year. So if this was in a GIS right now, in a mapping application, we could click on a pixel and I could tell you, if you told me your solar panel specs, I could tell you how much energy you could produce right there. What comes in handy with LiDAR data, because this isn't really anything new, but with LiDAR data, we can remove all of those trees and run it again. Same area. This was actually used in the city of Portland. A gentleman wanted to take down a large tree in his yard. His neighbors didn't want him to. They said that his reasons for taking it down weren't good enough to take it down. He wanted to put more solar panels on his house. And his argument was that if we take this tree down, I'll get more solar panel efficiency. Therefore, that's more benefit than the tree was ever giving. So we actually ran the same analysis and found that his argument was not true. He could barely generate any extra power. So LiDAR data, here's a tree for you to see. We have 63 billion points. We know what is a tree. We don't know each individual tree, but we can go in and we can look at certain trees. So here I've got for you the tallest tree in the city of Portland. This is in Bulch Creek, right off Cornell Road by the Audubon Society. If you look at a aerial image of this, it's in a big creek, so it's actually quite hard to tell. So here it is right here. It's a little hard to tell. See the tree through the forest, but
See the forest for the trees.
we'll see the internet's a little slow, but we'll see if we can zoom out. You see Cornell Road on the right there, but there's much taller trees than that. But the LiDAR allows us to see through the trees, to see the ground, and actually get an accurate measure of every single tree. That one is 252 feet. If it was in the city of Portland, if it was a building, it would be the 24th tallest building.
Wow.
I measured all the buildings too. Here we have another one, just to show another example of how we can single out these large trees, 137 feet. If you look at the top here, you can actually see this strange structure. This is a crane. This is right on North Williams, where they built the New Seasons one block over. This is now an apartment complex here. I'll have Pete email out the link to this. This is all online, so you can see it at home, where if you have a fast internet connection. Check out the street view of it. You can see the tree and go through time and kind of look at the area being constructed. Here's some more trees. This is actually a 201-foot tree right here. If you've ever been to Portland State University, to the library, and seen the giant copper beech out front of that, that gigantic tree is the size of this little one right here. This is 126 feet, so that's a 5-story building, comes up to about here. I'm going to skip over a couple here and get to some more pertinent ones. I actually have the Portland State University tree here. Here's before the library was built around it. Some old archival photos that we found. Now there's a building wrapped around it, but they saved the tree and built the library around it. We can see here that tree, 126 feet, and the park blocks here. So going straight through these trees here would take you north through the park blocks. These were in the news recently, the Eastmoreland sequoias. They were actually saved due to a large citizen action. A lot of protesting and tree sitting. It worked out in their favor, and they actually were able to raise enough money to buy the property from the developer. In this area, those trees are by far the largest thing around. Other trees here, and this is one I wanted to show you. So this is what I can determine the tallest tree in all of Oregon City. It's about 200 feet tall. I say about because it has a decent lean to it. So it could be anywhere between 205 and 190 feet. And it's actually this one right here. You can see a home over here. This is 30 feet right here. And a large creek. This is off Highway 213.
You know which creek it is?
I don't, no. The Google Earth link here, I won't click on it because it'll take a while to load just with this internet, but I do encourage you to go to this link at home. There's a lot of links that'll take you directly to these spots that we're talking about so that you can explore the area a little more.
I'd like to nominate the tree. You guys all knew where my mind was going to.
So I can go in, I can draw a line and pull out individual trees, but that doesn't really help us when we want to do large-scale environmental modeling. So what we have to do is identify every single individual tree. Programmatically, we do that, takes several different languages, and it took us about 6 months. I worked with a a researcher at Metro. About 6 months, we found 13.4 million trees in the metro area. Now that's only counting trees 10 feet and taller. That's pretty much Metro's decision that if it's below 10 feet, it can't be a tree. There's limits that you have to draw in order to move forward. Here's just an example of what that can look like when you programmatically select individual tree crowns. This is at OHSU. You can see the Sky Bridge there.
Do the different colors mean anything, or they're just showing different trees?
Just so you can see it a little easier.
I was hoping those different heights.
Well, then you might like this next slide. So with a lot of machine learning, we actually constructed what's called an ensemble machine learning algorithm, where we take many different types of machine learning. If you're not familiar with it, it's one component in artificial intelligence. We train a computer how to think about a problem that we give it, and then we make it think for us, because we're not as smart or quick as they can be with very certain things. So this is actually Oswego Lake, Oregon City. You can see downtown Portland, Swan Island right here. I'm going to zoom in a little.
You see,
And
zoom in Oregon.
Zoom in on us.
You're so Lake Oswego focused. Well, you could see pretty clearly Newell Creek Canyon there on that map.
we'll go down here towards Oregon City. So we have about 90% accuracy on this for every tree. It's not perfect, but it's the best model we've ever come across, especially for an area this large. This data, there's a link down at the bottom. It's actually an open data source because we worked with Metro with it. It's part of the Regional Land Information System. I actually saw it on Pete's computer once, so I believe Oregon City has it in the database. At least some of the other lead-up products like Canopy Height and just Canopy Layers and GIS systems. So what do we do with all that? Now we've created the trees, we've defined all the trees, we can look at things like how tall the tree is, how wide it is, we can look at volume, biomass. We start building models. Here's some work that my lab participated in. This is air quality. This is nitrogen dioxide modeling. It's a mobile air pollutant. It comes mostly from automobile combustion. This, if you'd like to read the highly technical paper, this came out of Portland State University's Environmental Science Department. It was actually Dr. Rao's
I do want to read that paper.
dissertation. And this link, if you click it, will take you straight there to the paper. And in this, one of the major inputs in this was Canopy, and it was shown that Canopy highly correlates with the reduction in NO2. And that number, there's a specific number that we can associate with certain distances, so we can turn that into things like this. This looks a little abstract. I'll explain what it is. This is also, we published this a couple of weeks ago, so you can go look at this as well. The background, those are tax lots, shaded from white to black for how many people we predict live there. It's called a dacimetric map. Now these bubbles around it identify nitrogen dioxide sinks related directly to trees. Now these trees that we're looking at were planted by Clean Water Services as part of a stormwater management system. They claim to have planted around 1 million trees. Mostly in riparian areas, mostly to shade streams. But we took that data when we were working with them and actually figured out how much NO2 was reduced by these trees. We found that until maturity of the types of trees planted, it's about $400,000. It wasn't a huge amount, but they weren't planting for nitrogen dioxide reduction. It was mostly to cool streams. The other main part of our research in the lab is studying the urban heat island effect. We do that with a multi-temporal traverse-based model, which is actually quite simple. We take this little PVC pipe you see in the image here, and that's got what's called a thermocouple running up here to this T-mount. And what this allows us to do is collect air as we drive that travels through that tube and it hits our thermocouple, which is just a fancy thermometer. So we measure the ambient air temperature at approximately human height, and that gets paired with the GPS unit. So that clicks every 1 second while we drive throughout the city. And our most recent traverse field work, we sent out 8 people throughout the Portland metro area. Most of the images I'll show you today that you'll see are from 2 years ago when we just did the city of Portland. But we're in the works now to include the entire metro area, including Oregon City. Once again, we use machine learning models to determine really a predictive surface of what the temperatures are going to be. If you see here, this is the actual measured temperature on the y-axis, and our model, what it predicted on the x-axis. High correlation, strong performing models that we created. These are actually in press right now. They're supposed to be published tomorrow. So if you click on this link, it should be one of the first ones that pops up. This is it was published in Center for Disease Control's Preventing Chronic Disease peer-reviewed journal. So we measured in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. You can see massive shifts in the temperature. If you look at the downtown area in the morning, it's very warm. All the buildings, the building volume holds that heat in throughout the evening. If we look to the evening, which most public health workers are most concerned with, you actually see a very different scenario where
Interesting.
downtown, with all the shade that it gets throughout the day, relatively stays cool. Now it's still quite warm. When we went out, this was about a 100-degree day. But you look at areas like Foster Powell, where 82nd and Foster meet, Powell Boulevard. You also see massive sinks in heat. Mount Tabor here, Powell Butte over here, Rocky Butte up here, and of course Forest Park. It's quite cool. What we can do with that is actually tell in certain areas. I've zoomed in again. This is 82nd and Foster once again. We can create new data sets that actually show for every single area how much temperature reduction is due to trees. And we found that in the city, in some areas of the city, we actually see up to a 15-degree reduction in temperature in our model due to the presence of trees. And that really helps us single out which trees are really quite important to us. Relatively, we love all trees. Here's some preliminary results I put in here for you of the entire metro area. You can see Portland here again, Oregon City. These are just preliminary. By November, we should have the final full resolution, highest accuracy models, and can make this available to you.
And again, what do these colors represent?
Blue is colder and red is hotter. Throughout the entire metro area, we see about 15 degrees Celsius difference.
Oh.
A huge difference from different areas. And these, the cars went out, for 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, 1 hour in the evening. We're simultaneously collecting the data. And those are all the independent variables, what we create the model off of, are all derived from LiDAR and spectral data. Nothing less than, nothing more than 1 meter resolution. So very highly resolved.
Could you go back to that slide just for a moment?
Sure.
It'd be interesting to know what that blue spot that seems to be.
This one right here?
Yeah.
That's Singer Creek. Yeah, Singer Creek Park, where Lynn Avenue comes down.
And once we create the full resolution data sets, we'll put them up online in an interactive map, just like I showed earlier. It's quite fun to explore them. I've been doing it for 2 years, and I'm still not bored of it. So. Oh, sorry about that. Let me move back for you.
How hot it is right by the river.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right, and you see that in a lot of areas of Portland, too. A lot of people associate water with it being cooler, but when you look at Portland, that's where we put all of our rail yards, our shipping docks, and what we've actually found is because we did about human level measurement, We didn't measure what it feels like, how cool it is when you're actually swimming in the water. It's 5 feet above the water. So our prediction is that actually 5 feet above the water is quite hot. But no one's really 5 feet above the water ever, unless you're on a boat. But
So what is the temperature reflected there in the river itself? Do you know how?
the river right here is masked off. I actually just created this morning, so you'll have to excuse me. I don't know the exact numbers on it.
Okay.
If you do shoot me an email, I'll happily measure it for you and let you know.
And as Clackamas clearly is cooler and the Cove is warmer.
So another project that we did with this, we know where all of the trees are, which was kind of huge for a city, for a metropolitan area. You usually get cities that have their entire street tree inventories, but never every single tree. So we took the 1.8 million tallest trees in the region, and we put them all on a map. You'll have to excuse this loading a little slowly here. What this map allows you to do is click on an area. Place. A little slow due to the internet, but this is also available online for you to look at. The city of Portland has used this before to identify trees at risk. These sliders here, I can slide it and actually filter by height, so we can single out tall trees.
This is great.
We can single out, I won't do it just because it's a little slow right now, but you can do that same slider for distance from buildings, if it's on public land or private land, with that same model that we showed. This is coniferous, but we mean evergreen and deciduous. We'll have a button. This turns on the urban heat island map for Portland, so you can actually find areas with very few trees and very hot climates there. We also have the heritage tree data set for Portland that we can turn on. But that tallest tree that I showed you earlier in Oregon City, I found with this tool. Clicked on neighborhoods and was looking around.
Not in that neighborhood. Oh.
I believe it is this tree right here. And what this does is it tells you how tall it is, the height, our best guess at the tree type. Again, 1 time out of 10, it's wrong. And you can even click on this link here, and we'll see if this loads quickly. That link will bring up Google Maps on the satellite view directly centered on that tree. With the newest version of Google Maps, you can also hold Control and 3D zoom all around it. So there's our tree. There's the tallest tree that I can tell in Oregon City.
I want the address.
What's that?
Give.
I tried to find it earlier today, and I took a wrong turn and almost didn't make it.
Let's go down the road, right down the corner, right in front.
It's
I'm
right,
teasing.
right by 213.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
I have some examples of how that's used. I don't know how much more time I have, but I do hope that you all go on to this site. I have a lot of examples, areas of Portland where we have found big trees that the city has found them with this application, and you can look at it on Street View and really see these big, kind of unique trees, sometimes massive Doug firs in an industrial park that no one really thinks about because they don't drive through that industrial park very often.
Where do we get the site?
Can you
Yeah,
email it out?
Send it to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that'd be
Please
great.
do. This is so cool.
It's just on our lab's research server. It should be up there as long as PSU exists, which hopefully will be a very long time.
Deal.
I see the wonderful applications you could do it, but I also see the absolute negative that can come from it too.
Right.
So, because the new coined word with urban logging is real, and percentage being on private property. That's
Mhm.
why we have to make outreaches in order,
Mhm.
and policies in order to save trees,
We
keep
actually
our cities cool.
we built this app. As I said before, the director of our lab is on the Urban Forestry Commission. He's also the director of research for the Institute for Sustainable Solutions, and a lot of this came about because of Measure 11 and people being able to cut down a very large tree and replace it with a very small tree. So this was kind of brought forth to be against that, to say that
We
you know,
need to move on some policy
Right,
quickly.
it's not about the
because
number of
this
trees,
is a
it's-
huge tool
it's-
for
right.
foresters,
right, and
urban foresters.
The point we like to make is it's really about the amount of tree. It's not about the number of trees, it's about the amount of tree.
Yeah.
It's better to have one tree with lots of biomass than 50 tiny little dogwoods that don't do
Yes.
nearly as much. And in the city of Portland, I don't know if Oregon City, do you have a legacy tree project or a heritage tree project?
We have one. It's in its
We're
infancy.
working on
It's in
it.
its
We're
infancy.
working
Yes, we
on
are.
this.
Yes, we are.
Well, that's
We have a process, but we need to increase the public awareness of it.
This tool has actually given a lot of traction to folks in Portland in the heritage tree world for nominating trees, which is good for that. And our future research, more modeling, lots and lots of modeling. We'd like to get actually at tree genus or family or, I mean, species in a perfect world. That would be pretty amazing. Explore the relationships between urban heat and types of trees. So you could say this is a very hot area. Instead of just saying plant this kind of tree, you could say, well, plant a sequoia. Because in this
is what
this area, our models tell us that that's probably the best kind of tree to plant there.
And with mixed conifers, I bet you can really kind of see which, in forests, where we need, because we're such a unitarian, for not wrong word, but you know what, I always pull out the wrong word out of my hat, but uniforest, then I would assume that it would be good for replanting. Get your mixed conifers in there.
Yeah.
One thing that
I'm looking at Forest Park and all those, because I do research in Forest Park.
Oh, really?
I have 25 sites in Forest Park.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
For
And I have-
lichen sampling?
For trees, shrubs, herbs, lichens. We're doing dirt now.
Well,
And
make
we've
sure
been
you
looking
make
at
sure you get
pollution
my
stuff.
make
Yeah,
sure
I
you
want-
get my
I want
email,
your-
yeah.
yeah,
Do you work
definitely.
with Dr. Rosensteel?
I have done
Right.
some stuff.
We are-
kind of
we-
connect. I've been working with Hannah Prather a lot lately
Oh,
with her stuff. So.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I gave Hannah all of this data, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
And if I may speak for Bill, and I don't want to speak wrong, but I think he was one who was talking about working with Metro on doing their canopy count here in Oregon City and close by. I think. and
It's
he-
probably only 1 or 2 degrees of separation there then.
Yeah.
It's one thing I know the city of Portland really enjoyed when this LiDAR data came out was looking at the change detection where trees were removed and looking at permitted and not permitted removals.
I'd like to see
They didn't take any action about it, but it's with this LiDAR data, super high resolution, you can identify all the trees. It's very easy to see where a tree was removed and there's magically no paperwork for it.
Right.
Oh,
Over
take it
what
over to
time period
Cornhoof.
This was over 7 years was the last
7
time
years.
period, but I know Dogami wants to do it more and more and more. USGS has an initiative to try and cover the entire United States. I think it's 2020 or 2030, but then with regular updates. As the technology gets smaller, it becomes cheaper to go out and fly more and more. So we don't expect less frequent LiDAR flights. We're excited for the next one, whenever it is. And we're moving this beyond the Portland metro area. We went down to City of Eugene. There's an article here you can click on and see in the Eugene Weekly. And on our lab's website, which is also linked on the title page to this, you can find a lot of different news reports and interviews to hear a lot of opinions from the director of the lab. And with that, I'll leave you with a laser scan of the World Forestry Center. And does anyone have any questions?
So You've done work throughout all of the Portland metro area, including
Right.
Oregon City.
Mhm.
And what additional analysis is left in your project?
Within ours, it's a lot of sort of back end work. It's not just you point to the LiDAR file and hit go and run the model. I've spent the last month and a half just creating data sets needed for the model. I keep getting laughed at, sort of, by research computing at Portland State University because I keep filling up every single drive of theirs. I've got
Yeah, I mean, this
terabytes in.
this number,
terabytes.
this much
Yeah.
data is massive. Yeah.
Right. They know me. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Again, it's might be out of turn, but if we got a smaller subcommittee that we wanted to center on doing groups of bulk trees, maybe in neighborhoods, and or identifying the trees that we should do and approach people for heritage trees, and we got a small committee, would you kind of come and give us a targeted lesson on how we could pointedly work this to its most efficiency?
Yeah. And a lot of this data also, I can show you if anyone that would be on that committee has any GIS experience. It's all free data that you can access. So that in addition to the tools would be, it can be really powerful. A lot of people don't know the data's there though.
And how to access it properly.
Right.
Well,
And utilize it to its best. That's
Or having a desktop that will actually process that data as it's
We actually, we used
Yeah.
we used 36 computers, and I wrote a program that hooked them all together and made them think they were one. And it was 7 days straight of processing on 36 computers.
So we're lucky
Need
this
some
works at all.
nerd like that.
Right, yeah. I just had my fingers crossed that it would.
one program that ruled them all.
I'd be curious as to what your funding source is. Maybe you mentioned it.
My funding for my position comes from the Institute for Sustainable Solutions at Portland State University, and a lot of this is also partnered with Bureau of Planning and Sustainability on their climate action plan. So a lot of the urban heat island work, if you actually look at the 2015 climate action plan for the city of Portland, they have one of the old versions of our urban heat island model in it, and that's their sort of official where they consider the urban heat island to be. And since then, when they do another climate action plan, we'll have newer data for them. But it's a mix, primarily ISS and a bit sprinkled in from U.S. Forest Service. And we're a university, so we take the grants wherever we can get them. And
I've got another question, and
Yeah.
maybe tree canopies prevented, but I did notice that it looks like you are able to pick up differences in the surface temperature of streams and rivers in this program. Am I
we
right?
definitely measure the amount of incoming solar radiation. We can tell you exactly what parts of what stream get how much
Oh, wow.
how much solar radiation. As I showed in the
Yeah.
first slide up here,
Yeah.
we can remove those trees, so we can look at differences, and we can actually see the streams through the trees. And this is actually a stream right here, so we can actually make new data sets from the combination of these two data sets and tell you how much shade these trees are casting on that.
It seems to me this would be a great benefit for decision making in terms of areas where plantings are desired on stream, where to focus the greatest energy in terms of.
Or a decision
Yeah.
about replanting and
Is-
density.
Right.
And what type, yeah.
Yeah.
So a question and curiosity. I've been on NOAA research vessels and hydrographic mapping.
Mhm.
I see a lot of similarities in the technology, but I remember having to do a lot of hand cleaning of data.
Mhm.
Does the program now clean itself? That you don't
No.
have to get in there, or you have to get in there?
I have to
and
get
clean
in
it?
there.
Okay. I feel your pain.
We leave an
I feel your pain.
acceptable amount of error in it.
Yeah.
When we run our models, we're looking at
Wow.
larger areas.
Yeah.
So I would say, sort of like with the evergreen deciduous classification map I showed, That's mostly, we look at things like city blocks, and we calculate. At that level, it's quite accurate. But it's only 90% accurate if you go tree by tree by tree.
Right.
So we make sure that it's accurate, that it could pass through peer review for what our intentions are for it. So it's not exactly civil engineering CAD data, but
Yeah.
it's still quite good.
Yeah, we had to look at each sheet, and wherever there was a ping that was off, remove.
Yeah, that's those slices you saw, those individual trees. That's actually screenshots from the application where we open it up,
Yeah.
circle the point that's wrong,
And then,
change what code it is. But
wow.
yeah, I have a special mouse.
Yeah.
Speed mills.
Well, I know we place a lot of emphasis on planting street trees, but it seems to me that unless we had information showing a correlation between the soil volume and the width of the planters and the overall establishment of large trees in those public street areas, I don't know if we're doing the right thing other than creating the aesthetics that come with street trees, and it would be interesting to see whether there's any studies in that regard.
There's actually
most impact tree.
Right. Yesterday we had a meeting with BPS, and a lot of folks from Portland City Forestry were there, and that's sort of the next phase of this project with BPS is to look at plantability, identify where you could put a tree, and run a bunch of different scenarios over the next year to really see what the best practices should be for placing new trees based on things like air pollution and urban heat. So stay tuned. Sorry, I don't have anything for you now about that, but it's in the work. There are other people thinking about it, definitely, and it's
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Thank you
very
very
interesting
much.
presentation.
Fascinating.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
for having me.
I'm definitely going to be in touch with you.
Yeah,
Is
and-
Todd your advisor?
Leave your card behind.
No, Dr. Sean Despivak.
He didn't bring cards, but I will make sure that you guys have his info and all the links that we've been shown tonight. And
Great.
I really appreciate it.
And I really do encourage you to go through and click on all the links and everything.
Great, thank
Play
you.
with it and not do what I'm supposed
yeah.
to be doing.
Yeah, you could kill a lifetime on it.
Yeah. Great.
Great.
Thanks, Jax.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now Martin is up.
Wasn't aware I was giving a presentation.
Oh, I sent you the agenda.
Yeah, but I thought you were just presenting the letter of support.
Oh, well, you okay?
Well, it's good that you're here because we might have some discussion that was generated by our trip. Several of us
Do you
were
wanna
ready to go.
Yep.
Do you need it? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Does everybody have a copy of the letter?
I do.
You should have a copy of the letter.
Good.
In here?
Yeah.
Stainless steel one. Mhm.
I can't. It's very hard.
Not linked.
So I can provide an update to the planning division while he's getting that sorted, if you like.
Sure. No, I have to pick up dog food for my
Yeah.
dogs, so gotta get out of here soon.
We hired a new planner to replace my old position. So now we have Pete and Diliana. So Diliana's assistant planner, Pete's a planner, and doing most of the current planning. We will have a new person named Trevor Martin, who's coming to us from Yakima. And we're very excited for him. He'll take over the preservation program. So
Oh, exciting.
yeah, it's very good. He's he's been administering the preservation program in Yakima for a year, but kind of helped with that program for about a half year before that. And he's very excited, and we look forward to him joining the team. And he should start around Halloween is his first day. Might be a strange first day.
I'm
Today I
gonna
moved
dress
into my
up.
house.
Welcome to Oregon City.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the letter?
Yeah.
To meet the approval of everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead with a formal motion to approve the sending of this letter, then we get it signed here.
Okay, so that's item 6A. I can move that up on
Oh.
the agenda.
Sure.
Yeah, so I kind of, what I did was I had a presentation and then I put the decision separately under new business. So if we want to move it up, we can do that.
And the reason we had the presentation is
Yeah.
if any of you weren't able to make the site tour. I know that one of you
yeah,
weren't able
yeah.
to. We'd be happy to reschedule that for anyone who wants to come by. And if you have any questions, this is the proposed site plan. It's still draft to some extent. We won't be going into the formal planning process probably next month as we'll start scheduling our free app and then pre-app.
All right.
But we'll be moving forward with that probably in the next month or so.
It was, for those who couldn't make the site tour, I found it really interesting just seeing both the natural features as well as the condition of the existing buildings and the spaces that you guys are working in.
Yeah.
And doing all of your computer work as well as your maintenance work.
Necessity is the mother of ingenuity. And you've seen we've been very creative with what we have. I do want to say one thing. I hope none of you feel that we have been derelict with maintaining the buildings. I'm spending close to $40,000 just this year just keeping the Band-Aids that are holding it.
Oh yeah, no,
together.
that was very no. It
Yeah.
didn't look derelict by any means. It
Right.
just it looks like you're dealing with what you have, and,
Okay.
and that's no for sure.
And you have a lot of old buildings. And
Yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us live in old buildings. So
We're trying to make the most that we can with it, and we're trying to be good stewards. But I think the time has come, and I think the open house for you guys, the ones that we did for the neighborhood, all of the people who've come by, I think the consensus is it's giving up the ghost and let's move on with another plan.
Yeah, move into the 21st century with.
I'll be happy with the 20th century.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There's a couple of those buildings that are still
for sure.
19th century.
Well, being able just to get central heat and air would be probably like woohoo.
yeah.
All right, well,
We should get those buildings on the local inventory, then he can't do anything.
There you go.
I beat you to the punch. I've already gotten a determination they're non-contributing structures.
Have a fun out of it.
Yeah. I've got that letter laminated.
Extra copy under your bed and extra copy.
That's good. Stick that.
So, do I have a motion to go ahead and pass?
I'll make the motion to go ahead and accept.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
I've got a color copy of the letter if Doug and
Sure.
Trent would like to sign this.
Sure.
For the committee. Okay.
You bet.
Would you like me to log you off this?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you guys. I have to go get dog food, but otherwise my wife's going to get very angry.
Or you'll be in the doghouse.
Yeah, you don't want. You'll definitely be in the doghouse.
She sent me a text 20 minutes
The next item is that Laura talked me into making a presentation to the next Citizen Involvement Committee. It's on the 5th of October, is that correct?
That is.
And I'd like a little bit of input in terms of the things that you want me to cover there. And of course, anybody's welcome to go there as well. The Heritage Tree Program, of course.
It's actually
I'd like to
October
go.
3rd.
October 3rd?
3rd, yes.
October 3rd.
What day is October?
October 3rd?
It's a Monday.
October 3rd. Yeah, Monday.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry about
okay.
that.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I think also describing that when we any items that go into a natural resource overlay and the planning program do come to us for comments and so forth, and that we have had active participation in such things as the Public Works building and anything else that,
Well, you've updated the street tree list in years past, or fairly recent years past. Revised the heritage tree ordinance, provided pretty valuable input on the Cove, input on the Environmental Learning Center, several other projects which don't come to mind right now, but I can provide a list of those for you, Doug.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
appreciate that. Hey, well, we'll go on. Maybe I can discuss the items there when we come to our communications piece.
We've got some minutes to be approved.
Yes, we do. I guess I jumped over those. We have the minutes up here. You can pull them up. They're abbreviated minutes. I think we discussed more than the document
Oh, yeah,
indicates,
toggle back,
but.
okay.
And agenda, so, yeah, there we go. Minutes. So,
Since I wasn't here, it's going to be hard to know
Right,
whether
so
they're
you'll
accurate or not.
have to abstain
Yeah.
from.
Anybody that wants to make any amendments?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Do I hear a second? I'll second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Or
I'm abstaining
abstentions?
just because I haven't.
Yes.
I wasn't
yeah.
here.
And we are going back after that, and then we have the old business, nothing there, communications. First of all, I'm very happy to introduce Nancy. Several of us met her already when we did the tour of the Public Works facility. It's clear to me that you're going to be a tremendous asset to our committee, and appreciate you having you on board.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I really think it's going to be great. I'm going to learn a lot more about the city that I've never paid any attention to. So
Learn from you, thanks.
I've been here long enough. I should.
Me too.
Is there any communications, anything that anybody wishes to discuss in terms of anything related to our committee, or be it a committee or other activities you're involved in natural resources?
I just want to commend the work of the committee. We've been talking for years about getting more connected to the Parks group, and having them at the meeting tonight means that we've come a long way.
Yes.
So I just want to acknowledge the work that's been done. It feels very good.
Yeah, very good.
Should mention that we have a new community services director as well. Did you mention that?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
Phil Lewis is coming to us from, what's the county near the Dalles?
Wasco?
Wasco County,
Yeah.
yes. So he was the director of their community services. It was a whole department
Recreation.
thing.
If I rec-
Recreation district. Thank you.
If I recollect correctly, wasn't he involved in Portland at one time? Or? Yeah.
Yep, you're correct. So he did work for City of Portland before Wasco County. I think he'll be a great fit for the community, a great big picture thinker, just looking to try and connect people with recreation and different types of recreation. I think it'll be really nice. He'll start at the end of this week, or this month, rather.
Let's see, what else is going on?
Anything else?
I guess I was just curious with the whole waterfront project, what's been going on down there. I was thinking about it the other day and hadn't heard much or hadn't really looked into it either.
We
so.
could, actually Jerry Herman suggested that Ed Doral come and speak to us. My understanding is planning has not yet received a formal design on the second phase
For the Cove, that's
of
correct.
the Cove. And I was going to ask the group if we wanted to invite Ed Doral to speak to us. He's the person that's been working on that project. It serves, I guess, as a consultant at this point, but from the very, very beginning, he's been involved in that project. As people may recall, the recession hit it, and they couldn't proceed. But they've come back. They're into phase 1, but they're anxious to actually get started on the phase 2, which is the East Bank, where they'll have condo-like facilities built. Earlier, I heard that they were not initially developed to sell as condos, but they would be converted over time. I don't know if that's going to be the plan or not. But if people want to have Ed Doral speak to us, I'm sure he would be willing to.
Yeah, that'd
In
be
fact,
great.
I know he'd
I'd
be
like
willing.
to
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Actually, Jerry Herman's not here because Ed Doral's making a presentation
Down at
was it Two
Two Rivers Neighborhood Association.
Rivers Neighborhood Association tonight, so he's down there for that presentation. So I can go ahead and get hold of him. I suggested we might do it next month. And how tight, do you know how tight our agenda is for next month?
The two big items in my mind are the one that Mr. Edgar brought to your attention tonight, that we'll probably want to talk about and what the process is for that, as well as we're coming up to a point where we need to develop a set of items for the city commission to entertain at their retreat as part of our annual report to the city commission. So that could be a work item for October as well.
Yeah.
So those are two big.
Is this body, would it be in favor of having a special work session to actually do the goal setting outside of this committee meeting? If we could set something else.
Yeah, if I'm available, yeah, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, because I think discussing that at a kind of a roundtable situation as
Agree.
opposed to this formal setting here would be a great idea.
Yep.
Because we had the last time we had a work session, it worked pretty good.
Yeah,
Go through a few items pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, let's plan that. If that's the case, maybe we can extend the
Yeah, we can
invitation.
extend that.
Otherwise, I'd hold Ed Doral
Okay.
back a bit.
Well, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we do have some large annexation submittals that have been turned into the city, including the Oregon City Golf Course. Two large annexations up in Park Place that are been previously, well, one we haven't seen before, but one we have several
Where's that big
times.
tree relative to?
Not there. So annexation process is a process of expanding the city boundary within the urban growth boundary. It's not a land use review where you're looking at land division or actual site-specific development. You're just deciding whether the city has the capacity to serve an area for urban development and basing the annexation decision on that. But these are large-scale annexations. The golf course alone is 117 acres. And the combined acreage of the two annexations in Park Place would come close to, 150 acres?
Yeah, one's 90.
Yeah, 150 acres. So those came in all in the same week, pretty much. Well, in the same 3 weeks. So you'll be getting notice of those, as you do with all land use items.
I'm just going to mention a couple things with regards to the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. They're involved. Well, we've had John Runyon speak to us on the Cove of the Harbor mitigation project. He's working with the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council to go ahead and make some rapid assessments on Abernathy Creek in terms of habitat there. We've started this year to do some temperature work and setting up to do surveys. It's quite a task because you have to have the agreement of the property owners to go onto there. And even though you might go up Abernathy Creek and think there aren't that many landowners there, there are a lot of landowners there. So we're trying to work with the property owners. I'm going to hand this out, I'll submit it by email probably too, but the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council is having a fundraising breakfast that's going to be put up jointly with the Beaver Creek Range on October 1st. And if you're able and interested, John Runyon will be speaking to us the group in terms of what will be going on in that particular activity. I don't know if I put something else in at the end that wasn't part of it.
Wow.
So if you have a chance to come in, that'd be great.
What's the date on that again?
October 1st.
October
The
1st.
breakfast time is
Is that it?
early enough, I think. Yeah, 8 a.m. to 11 o'clock.
Come in my little
Okay.
uniform.
Oh, thank you.
Have a game day.
Lamprey ornaments? Are they real lampreys?
There, no, and there's only one. We'll do it as part of a drawing.
Yeah.
They're saying a silent auction. I'm not sure if that's happening, but there will be basically a lottery, split the Blex lottery that'll be going on. Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
I'd update you on Oregon City Parks Foundation, except we've been pretty much updated on it.
That's great.
Except for they are putting together a bottle drive, and they're seeking sponsors around town, and then also reaching out to our city and county buildings to put containers in with their logo on it and start collecting it and putting it in their general funds.
Now, the group, actually, the group that the bond request is going into was that HDR Engineering?
HDR Engineering.
HDR, do you know what the initials stand for by any chance?
Oh, I don't
It-
know. It
it's
was
not
at
a-
their website. It is the cool. They do such cool.
And
things.
they're actually, they'll probably do the work, but they're also the granting organization, is that correct?
That's
Okay.
right here.
Very good. So Pete, first thing in the morning, if you could just send me a letterhead.
Okay. Yep. Will do. Oh, you already did. She already did.
She already sent me one. Okay, very good.
She's connected.
Any
Efficiency.
future items? We've kind of discussed what's coming up at the next meeting and made the decision to go ahead and have a special work session on our super recommendations to the city commission in terms of our goals. Anything else for the good of the order?
Well, is anyone interested in an update on the trees in Waterboard Park, or since it's not a natural resources
Well, sure.
area? Well, the Ed Lindquist is going to trial
Oh,
on
yeah,
October 14th.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's just to let you know
just
that as an
kinda-
update.
And before Jerry can sign in, should I adjourn the meeting? Jerry, actually, we have completed our business. If anybody wants to make a discussion, we will be inviting Ed Dorrell to speak to us at our next meeting.
Okay,
So,
so we just heard from him.
I know you did.
Now.
I know you did.
Yeah.
Go back and
so-
start your grant writing.
So, welcome, Jerry. We'll count you in, even though you had no opportunity to make any votes or anything else.
It's okay, I've been
No, you're not
always
considered.
outvoted.
So, any comments you wanted to make as we're closing
Is
up?
this personal? Okay, yes, I do. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, the Marine Board's meeting in this room at 7 p.m. to discuss the boat ramp issues, and I'm just going to pass out their flyer because it's their event with the Parks and Recreation Department of this city. And there's a number of people that are concerned about the placement of the new ramp because it will impact Clackamas Park, but I'm not going to describe any more than that because you need to come here and listen. If the new ramp is put in place, there's probably quite a few more trees that'll have to come down, unless I'm wrong on that. I believe I'm right. But then the existing ramp has been rehabbed, and it's working if you like to launch in the middle of a standing wave. What I'm saying is that the velocities are still so high where the ramp has been rehabbed that the current creates a standing wave on the outgoing tide, and nobody can launch there right now. But at least it's fixed if you want to go kayaking over waves. So that's the only thing I really want to say.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
since you handed us something, I'll hand you something.
Okay.
Next Saturday.
Wow, good deal.
I see you one event and raise you two.
Where is this at?
It's at the Beaver
Oh,
Range.
I know this place.
Yeah, if you're going there, you know where it makes a big curve around the bar.
Yep,
You
sure
go
do.
straight just a few feet, if you can see.
I know exactly the place. And what are you serving?
He's gonna sign it first.
Whatever the Grange serves.
I see Nutria pie. Is that true?
No, that's nutritious pie. Very good.
You know, I would like to introduce to you a gentleman I just met, Dylan Schwartz over here. He really loves the environment. He's really sharp, and we're hoping to see him teach some classes up at the LC. I guess I should say something about that. We're hoping to see a bunch of classes come back winter and spring term at the Environmental Learning Center, forestry, anything you'd like to do, more community ed type things to rebuild the interest that the public had in seeing classes for the public benefit. Someone said that it'd be nice to hear about what the Yakimas really think of their fishways made to look more natural. I thought that'd be a great class. I think somebody knows about that.
No,
Don't you?
no,
No?
no.
I thought you told me you know all about that.
I didn't tell you I knew much about anything.
And our educator down there farther, I know you know a bunch of things that possibly might be, the point being they're trying to put together a series of classes, winter and spring term, and Dylan's got some ideas because he's kind of well, you're a scientist as far as I'm concerned. And then Brian's a great person with natural history kinds of things, so anyway.
I'm sure I could say something, but
Okay.
nothing political.
But I will
about the
plan
Yakima.
on being at the Nutria feed on the 1st of October.
Very good.
You.
Auspicious event.
With that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Wow. Well, that was good. I feel good.